XFL Week 5 starting on Thursday. Interesting that they decided to start on have a game Thursday when March Madness starts tomorrow. I don't know if that was the best scheduling by the XFL, but I guess, there's March Madness all weekend. But still, opening day is the day. It's like, what? An opening day, but whatever. Excited to talk about Week 5, guys. Hope you had a good Week 4. For me, I did not play in the high stakes last weekend for the first time, and that was my first week not cashing tournaments. So I guess I ran good. I pivoted. If I kept my original lineup, I would have cashed because I originally had Brian Hill, but pivoted to get Bryson Aline in, as majority of high stakes players did. Someone tweeted it out. I forget the ownership gap is, but he was like just way more popular in high stakes. He was 3.4K, and once we got news that Borgie was scratched, he became a phenomenal value. But in typical XFL fashion, they went to the backup more, Dewan Lee, who finished with 21 fantasy points, and the Sharks that played Allen, or whatever his name is, however you pronounce it, got punished. So that was definitely frustrating. But so that was the recap of my week for XFL. Again, didn't enter. It was just a busy day last Saturday for me, so wasn't able to get it in. But definitely, I'm going to be playing high stakes tournaments this week for sure. So I'll make sure to get my entry in there. And if you guys do enjoy the XFL content, make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Also, if you're looking for premium content, you can check out my Patreon link down below. I post everything, all the data. I post some stuff for free on Twitter, but quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, I post snap percentage, routes, targets, carries, catches. I post all the data in charts for each position. So that's all over on Patreon if you guys are interested in that. I'll be mentioning some stuff in this video, but check that out. Also, I have videos for all the Showdown slates, content for the main slate, player pool, live stream. So make sure to check that out if you're interested. And let's just get right into the video. So we're going to go start it off by talking about the quarterback position, and then we'll go with running back, wide receiver, and tight end. We'll go team by team. So for quarterbacks, you had 4 quarterbacks only play 100% snaps. That would be Ben DiNucci, AJ McCarron, Jack Cohen, and Kyle Slaughter. Tiamu and Derek King split snaps. Tiamu played 69% of the snaps. King played 31%. Huntley got benched. He only played 21% of the snaps. Perez came in and finished the game, played 79%. Lynch played 82% of the snaps. They tried to bring in Francois, but he wasn't great, so they brought Lynch back in. And then Silvers played 78% of snaps. Again, that's not a surprise, though. They've been bringing Cole McDonald in for a lot of running situations, sometimes in the red zone as well. Talking through the quarterbacks, I think, once again, your two safest bets are going to be DiNucci and McCarron. DiNucci kind of had a subpar game last game, only going for 13 fantasy points. But this is a game that could definitely shoot out. We have two high-powered offenses in Houston and Seattle. This is by far going to be the chalkiest game of the week, as it should be. So I still like DiNucci at the top. I think AJ McCarron is a solid play at 10.8K. Pretty safe. Again, no real risk of getting benched. The only downside is the matchup against DC. DC is like a run-first team. They're going to grind it out, but still like McCarron. Brandon Silvers, I think, is a good tournament play. He's still been producing even while not playing 100% snaps. And my worry is those red zone snaps that he doesn't get, where they will run it with McDonald. But I like the ceiling on Silvers in a game that has a good chance to shoot out. The rest of the quarterbacks, I don't know, or definitely, unless he's starting, I don't think I can get to Brett Huntley, who barely played last week. It was Perez, but I'll pass on the Vegas quarterbacks unless it's Huntley that starts, but still there's some risk. Jordan Ta'amu, does have some upside, but again, Derek King stole 2 touchdowns last week, so it's still hard for me to go there. Paxton Lynch, I guess, is fine at 8K. Again, they try to bring in Francois, but it looks like Lynch is definitely their best bet, so I don't hate him as contrarian play. Kyle Slaughter, once again, played 100% of the snaps. Once again, didn't do much. Went for 5 fantasy points. I guess he didn't have the worst day over. He threw 3 picks. Never mind. He did it. That was a pretty bad day. So he could be at risk of getting benched. Jack Cohen could be at risk of getting benched. Cohen, once again, was awful. Those guys played 100% of the snaps. So I'm not confident they will this week. And then, that's it for quarterbacks. So now let's go to running back and let's go team by team. I think it'll be a little bit easier to talk about. So we'll start off with Houston. We got to keep an eye on the Max Borghi news. He didn't play last game. I expect him to play in this game, but we'll wait on the confirmation for sure going into tomorrow. Now, if Max Borghi plays, I think Borghi himself is a solid tournament play. He's been playing consistently over 50% of the snaps when healthy. He is involved in the passing game. So I would like Borghi. If Borghi misses, you got Lee and Bryson that will split the running back duties. And last game, again, you saw Lee played 49% of the snaps. Bryson played 37% of the snaps. Lee got more carries. So both would be playable tournament plays, but neither would be priorities in that scenario. So let's move on to Seattle and running backs. We're going to keep an eye on Ellison news. He was a limited participant in practice. I believe he was a DNP on Monday, limited on Tuesday. So we'll monitor that going into tomorrow. He played last week. He played 62% of the snaps. He's been getting like all the carries. Got 16 carries. Hammonds, Bradwell only got 1 carry each. But the issue with Ellison is he's not running any routes. He only ran 6 routes total while playing over 60% of the snaps. So basically his production is going to come down to, on the ground. Can he fall into the end zone? Can he get it done on the ground? If not, there's a chance he might not get there. But still playing a good amount of snaps, viable. If he misses, then Hammonds and Bradwell become playable. I would prefer Hammonds for the price point. Also, Hammonds did play more than Bradwell, 11% to 3% last game. DC and St. Louis. This is another thing we got to keep an eye on. They only have 2 running backs on their roster, and Raquel Armstrong got banged up last game and did not practice on Wednesday. So I don't know if they would call up another running back. Artavis Pierce also on the IR. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. If not, and if it's only Abram Smith, then it would be hard not to like Abram Smith, right? Because he would be their only running back. He played about 80% of the snaps last week, had 22 carries, and ran a good amount of routes. We'll keep an eye on the Raquel Armstead news and if they add another running back. But if not, I think you've got to have interest in Abram Smith. Moving on to St. Louis. So once again, Brian Hill played a majority of the game. 18 carries, ran 21 routes. At 8K, I think he's one of the best running back plays on the slate. Again, he was originally in my lineup, but then I pivoted to get Bryson in there, and obviously you saw that worked out. I'm just really tilted about that. But I like Brian Hill a good amount. I'm not going to get to either of the backups in Durant or Walker. Let's talk about Orlando and Vegas. This Orlando offense is awful. John May Martin, Devin Darrington both played 33% of the snaps. Don't think I can do it. On the Vegas side, it's kind of gross here too. They played 3 running backs. Torrey did only play 5% of the snaps. Rod Smith and Lovett kind of split the duties there. I guess as contrarian plays, can you consider these guys? Yeah, but with a team with 3 running backs, I'm not a big fan. And then finally, Arlington and San Antonio. So once again, you got a hefty workload for Davion Smith, played over 60% of the snaps, had 9 carries, ran 20 routes. I think he's one of the better running back plays on the board once again. Hasn't really had that big pop-up performance, but the snaps are clearly there for him. The opportunities are there. I'm not going to consider either of the backups. On the San Antonio side, I do have a little bit interested in Keelan Balazs. Played 62% of the snaps. Jacquez Patrick only 38%. Balazs only had 5 carries. But again, that was a game they were playing from behind. So no one's going to play Balazs, but he's still getting a good chunk of the snaps here for San Antonio. So in a large field tournament, I think he's viable. Now let's talk about wide receivers. And a lot of ownership is going to go this first game, as it should be. It really should. Houston, Seattle. Again, this is definitely going to be the game of the week for week 5 for Houston. So let's talk it through. All right, let me scroll down to Houston. So they played 7 wide receivers technically, because they do have Holly listed as a running back. Nick Holly himself played 60% of the snaps and ran 22 routes. Again, he's listed as a running back, FYI, which I don't know why he still is. 3.7K. Yeah, I mean, he had 3 catches last week. Sure. It is a contrarian running back play. I guess it's fine. Burnett and Kirkland played a majority of the game. No surprise there. Both these guys have a pretty high ceiling playing this offense. Once again, another big day for Kirkland. Burnett, not as big, but still a guy that has a pretty high ceiling. The secondary wide receiver, Cedric Byrd, got a little bit of an increase from last week. 65% of the snaps. Travell Harris played 40%. I don't think I get to put number Smith, who didn't play enough for me to warrant consideration there. But Byrd had 7 catches and 7 targets, led the way for Houston. He's only 4.4. I think it'll be a pretty popular value play, but for good reason. Your more contrarian option would be Travell Harris. He did catch 2 touchdowns, but only played 40% of the snaps. All right, moving on to Seattle. So Seattle, you have Pearson, Jackson playing majority of the game. Both are great options again. Pearson is 11K. Blake Jackson is 8.5K. I think factoring in price, I would prefer Jackson, but the ceiling has been on higher on Pearson recently. And then you have this group of wide receivers mixing in behind those two. So Gordon, VC, Willis, and Green actually all played over 50% of the snaps, but no one played over 70%. So that group of guys are all playable. Obviously, the price point's the highest on Josh Gordon. I would say the ceiling's the highest on him as well, but I think I would rather get to Pearson or Jackson. VC, Juwan Green, and Willis, they're viable values here, right? VC, 4.9, Juwan Green, 3.7, had a nice week last week, and Damian Willis, 3K. These guys, the opportunities are there. They are there for these guys. So there's some value you can get from this game as well at wide receiver. Let's move on to DC and St. Louis. The one thing I noticed from last week to this week is a lot of these other teams outside of Houston, Seattle, started to kind of trim down their rotation, starting to play the starters a majority of the game. So that happened with DC. I mean, you did see it kind of last week, but going over snap counts, Hammond and Jackson played close to 100% of the snaps. 6 targets for Jackson, 5 targets for Hammond. I know this is a run-first team. Hammond 7-1, Jackson 5-4. I think factoring in price, I do prefer Jackson. Both guys are playable. And you can look at Chris Blair, too, who played almost 80% of the snaps and had 4 catches on 4 targets. So, I mean, DC, I know they're a run-first team, but yeah, these are guys I think you got to have some interest in for sure. I don't think I get to anyone else, though, but those 3, the top 3 for DC, are viable options. For St. Louis, they played 3 guys the majority of the game. Shepard, Butler, and Prohl all played 80% of the snaps or more. All had at least 6 targets. Now, we know that the ceiling has been the highest on Hakeem Butler, but Darius Shepard had a pretty big week last week, going for 20-plus fantasy points. And then you got Austin Prohl playing in the slot, who hasn't really had that big week besides week 1, but still a guy that's receiving a good amount of targets. So I have interest in all 3. But the price points are up a bit on them, right? 9.3 for Butler, 8K for Shepard, and 6.8K for Prohl. But again, you do have AJ McCarron throwing passes to them, who's one of the better quarterbacks in this league. Orlando, so again, struggling offense. I will say, though, like I said, this team also trimmed it down. Rambo, Rodgers, Lenore all played 70% of the snaps or more. Lenore played 100% of the snaps. Rambo, 8.1. He's more of a dart throw in tournaments because of the price point. But Rodgers and Lenore, 3.4 and 3K respectively, both played 70+% of the snaps. Rodgers working in the slot. Lenore working out wide. Lenore played 100% of the snaps. If you give him 100% of the snaps again, I think he's got to stand out. So, there's some guys that are playable, even though this offense sucks. And then Cody Lattimore, one of the few tight ends that is playable on this in the XFL. Once again, 4 catches, 7 targets. The price point slowly coming up on him, but there actually are some guys that are playable. And same thing here for Vegas. We got to keep an eye on news, too, for Vegas. So last week, we got Geronimo Allison as an being inactive. And you got Martavis Bryant a little bit banged up. So Badette played 90+% of the snaps. You saw Matthew Sexton played 90+% of the snaps. And Sink Sweeting only played 40% of the snaps, but Sweeting had 2 touchdowns. It's not updated yet, but yeah, 3 catches, 6 targets for 2 touchdowns. So there could be some value here if Martavis Bryant can't go, who didn't practice Tuesday, or if Geronimo Allison's inactive too, right? They only had 5 active wide receivers total, 4 only last game. So we'll keep an eye on the news there with Bryant, with Allison. But if one of those guys are out, it's going to open up some Sweeting and Sexton for value. So I want to keep an eye on that one for sure. And then Jeff Badette, their most consistent wide receiver this year, I think is once again a decent contrarian spend up. I don't think a lot of people will use him at the top because I think a lot of people are going to spend up with the Houston, Seattle wide receivers. But Badette, I mean, even though offense has not been great, he's still been putting up some big numbers. And finally, Arlington and San Antonio. So Arlington, I really don't think I can get to any of these wide receivers. So what? We had 6 wide receivers play. Outside of Peyton, who played 14% of the snaps, every wide receiver played in between 40 and 60% of the snaps. So they're just mixed. It's just a rotation here with Smallwood, Arcondo, and Vons and Winningham. Like I don't think I can get to any of these guys. I guess if I had to play someone cheap, it probably would be Caleb Van Der Esch, who came first game with the team, played 67% snaps, actually played the most, and he is the Flatman price. So if I had to pick one, it would be him. And then Canella, again, one of the few tight ends that actually is playable for XFL, played 88% of the snaps, 6 catches and 8 targets. totally fine using him as a mid-range play. San Antonio to wrap it up. We got some injury news to keep an eye on here for San Antonio. But they ran three guys a majority of the game. Tolliver, Fred Brown, and Travis, I don't know how to pronounce his name, basically played 80% of the snaps, all three of those guys. Johnson got injured, though, and then TJ Vasher status up in the air. Johnson did not practice. I would guess he does not play. TJ Vasher, on the other hand, was limited in practice. So I think if Vasher's available, he'll probably be one of the top wide receivers. But I think he'll take away from Brown and from Travis. So again, I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name, but I think the safest wide receiver probably would be Tolliver, who played 88% of the snaps at 6 catches and 9 targets and had a pretty solid week. But again, we'll keep an eye on Johnson. We'll keep an eye on Vasher. Could open up some value here with guys like Brown and Travis, who played a majority of the game last week. And then Alize Mack, again, another tight end that's getting a decent amount of work. 66% snaps last week for him, 3 catches on 3 targets, 3.5K. Viable punt play for sure. All right, I'm finishing up with defense. Once again, I'll mention all these defenses are in play. But I think, optimal build-wise, you just want to target the defenses going up against the bad offenses. So who are the bad offenses? Well, Orlando. They're not great offensively. So I think the Vegas Vipers defense at 4K looks pretty good. On the other side, Vegas's offense, not been amazing. So can you consider Orlando's defense at 3.6? Sure. San Antonio's offense, they've really been struggling. So I think Arlington's defense is in play. And then I'll mention Houston's defense. I think their defense is probably, them and DC, probably the best defenses overall in the league. But the issue I have with Houston is the matchup. But still, they are one of the better defenses, in my opinion, in this league. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up for the video. Hope you enjoy. If you do, make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And again, if you're looking for all that content, Showdown, Main Slate, player pools, updates, my spreadsheet with all the data, right? Snaps, routes, targets, carries, catches, all that stuff. That's posted on patreon.com. But yeah, good luck week 5. Hope to see you guys at the top of the leaderboard, and we'll see you in the next video.